Is it like a proper shirt?
What do you think? Should I get some different?
No, like, is it like, I've only ever seen you in like dry fit. I'm just impressed and like, I'm humbled if you put on like a proper shirt for me.
It's for you.
That's the biggest compliment I've ever been paid, but I'm a little disappointed. Like, it's so your brand now to me is the
This
dry fit.
has two buttons on it too. So, there you go. But no, the funny thing about that, every day I've always worn collared shirt, tie, blazers, the whole nine. Every day of my career until I joined Microsoft. 100 degrees weather, torrential downpour, long sleeves. My boss had to push me to start wearing collared shirts with short sleeves and then to wear no shirt. I'm no collar.
I
So
was
it's
about to
one of
say, no shirt. Where have you
I know,
come
right? I was
from?
like, no,
This is checkered past.
yeah.
So, hey, I'm excited, really excited to be interviewing you today for Humans of LinkedIn, Jair Clarke. I'm going to be completely honest. This is like more nervous than I have been than for the other interviews, and I was kind of checking myself on why. I know a little bit, I would say a minuscule amount actually about your story, but yeah, I moved to the US 6 months ago, and the discussion on topics related to racism is not one that I'm used to. We don't talk about it in Australia to the degree that it gets talked about in the US, which I think is a very cool thing about the US. And a disturbing thing about Australia, something we need to get a lot better at, is just having a conversation. But I get uncomfortable. I find it very rattling to hear stories about the experiences of people of color. And when you shared a little bit about your story with us at Microsoft, it was extremely hard to hear. And that's why I think I got nervous, is because it's subject that I don't want to be clumsy about, but that's not a good enough reason not to have the conversation, is it? So if I'm clumsy, I'm sorry, but I'm really excited to share your story with the people who watch these interviews.
I appreciate that, but no apology needed at all. For you to even extend the vehicle that we have to even have this type of dialogue, that speaks volumes over how the dialogue is smooth or, a little rough around the edges. So
Okay, so just a little introduction for those who are seeing your name for the first time. You have a bunch of letters after your name, letters that I don't know the meaning of. You've worked for 4 Fortune 500 companies, Lockheed Martin, IBM, Disney, and now you're a big wig at Microsoft. But behind all of that is just the most amazing human being. I feel really lucky to have come and crossed paths with you. I know, like I said, a tiny bit about your story, but as much as you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear a little bit about your experiences growing up in Carol City, Miami.
I would say, looking at Carol City, Miami, back when I was young, it was definitely an area that had a lot of opportunity, but it was definitely a tough place to live, if you will. So if you think of, lower income, if you think of crime, that's kind of the environment that it's been in. But as I look at that, and then also look at just in my total childhood, it definitely helped me with the DNA that I have today. It helped with the fabric that I have about myself. So I actually wouldn't change it. But some of the experiences that really helped me really have a perspective, call it street smarts, common sense, mixed with kind of academia. I've seen quite a bit of things. I've seen murder very close to me, closer than a laptop is. I've been robbed at gunpoint on multiple occasions. Um, I've been in my own yard, and my parents had to have a conversation with cops as far as why they're trying to take me away from my own house because they didn't think I belonged there. There's been situations where I was at a swim meet, so definitely one of the only black kids in the swim meet in a neighboring house called the cops because I gave a friend a handshake to wish him good luck before we start swimming, and she would come out and tell the cops I passed drugs when I shook the person's hands. Cops would pull me over because I was running doing cross country. So there's been situations I lettered in 6 sports: football, baseball, basketball, track, swimming, and cross country. So I'm running down the street, training for cross country. I get pulled over for running, handcuffs, drove in a couple miles, kicked out for nothing. Been jumped by the KKK. I know it's a KKK because they said they were the KKK as they were jumping me. So lots of different things kind of manifested, but at the same time, those experiences kind of really helped me for what I see around the world and how I can embrace what I can do next because none of it broke me.
You entered the workforce then, and being young or perceived as young, Black, and then having a seat at the table exposed a whole other set of challenges. Can you share some of those?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was constantly considered young. I'm not sure if that's still the case now or not, but
You look good, yeah.
maybe that's already changed. But yeah, I mean, you hear passive aggressive, you've seen aggressive stuff. The age profile was very interesting. Someone looks across the table and you give your perspective and say, hey, I've got kids, older than you, but that's not really the big stuff. The big stuff I would say is I've been in situations where I'm an executive at a company and HR is right there. And you have an executive with HR in a situation saying things like, you know what, I don't understand why people have a problem with Blacks being in the same ocean. I have a problem with Blacks being in the same pool, but not the same ocean. Ocean's bigger, pool is smaller. That's too close for comfort. I've had dinners in which, my wife's grandmother, little kids, we're all going out to dinner. Where we're supposed to be, you've had security look for an extended period of time, wait for us to come back to our vehicle, jump out of a moving vehicle, curse words, the whole 9 yards, you don't belong here, etc. What are you doing here? And blah, blah, blah. Without really understanding the fundamentals of there's a badge on my vehicle that identifies my rank in my company, which identifies this benefit of parking where I'm parked at right now. And for them to jump out, make accusations, they were watching me on the CCTV the whole time, waiting for us to come back. They called the cops, whole deal, in which I asked for the manager and I showed my identification, which also shows the rank that I had. I asked one fundamental question. I asked the manager, did anybody in this time, an hour plus time, waiting for me to come back, looking at CCTV, closed circuit television, did anybody stop and look at the windshield of my vehicle to identify that I belong where I belong? Walked them over to the vehicle, the rest is history. So I've seen a lot of experiences, for my age. I've seen a lot of experiences for, I would say, my color of my skin. That's going to happen. It's going to happen to a lot of people. What I'm struggling to help the world with is how, as a system, do companies really move forward and how do they address it and how do they create an environment and an enabled environment and a culture in which it's not allowed to be okay. It's not an enabler.
You're a pretty private guy. You're not on social media. I think you're only begrudgingly on LinkedIn. What made you feel ready to start talking about this stuff?
Honestly, don't know. Definitely a private person. I think it really just boils down to I constantly see people treat others based on how they're acting, not treating people for who they really are. People are not necessarily how they act in that moment, but we are so quick to respond to how someone's acting in that moment as opposed to responding to that person. There's a song by CeeLo Green, and one of the comments is, you don't know what the next man is going through. I wish I could say it in a better way. So constantly seeing people respond and treat people based on a moment, not based on the understanding that you don't know what they're going through and you don't know who they truly are. That kind of resonates with me. Instead of having these private discussions, instead of having these private dynamics, people have asked me to talk. I'm glad people have asked me to talk. Not sure why people even want to hear me talk. But with that said, let me start sharing what I've learned from others because I didn't create everything I just shared. This is stuff that's been passed on to me and stuff that I reflected on, and which I hope it helps at least somebody.
One thing that I didn't mention in the intro is that you were semi-professional. I always get confused about like how college sports work in this country. They seem major, but you were an athlete. I joked about you wearing Nike Dry Fit every day. What else did you learn about yourself, or what habits did you form in your sporting life that you apply in your corporate life?
I would say a few things. One, the way I eat. I don't drink soda. I don't drink coffee, no tea. I don't eat fried foods. And outside of that, I eat and drink anything else that I want. Kind of quirky. I don't cut corners. So if you're walking down the street or anything like that, in sports, they put cones. You don't cut the cone.
Ah,
Don't
that's
cut the
really
cone.
funny.
In sports, and just like in the corporate America, there's a couple things you can build up a very strong brand, a very strong reputation over years. It just takes a couple of moments or a bad decision to bring it all down. So, like in sports, you can be on top of the world, if you will. Somebody tweaks a hammy or a hamstring, should I say, and it's a wrap. You got the next person up in which they're chomping at the bit. They believe in themselves. They're bringing their best, and now they're taking your role. Same thing in corporate America to a certain degree. Focus on you, be your best, and understand that you have to be authentic and be real every step of the way, because if you make the wrong step, and it's a substantial step, it's something in which it'll be very impactful in years of brand, years of reputation, years of delivery, years of bringing people along, years of mentoring. That's now an afterthought. Let's do it.
Who's the musician that you have? You already mentioned CeeLo Green. Who's another one that you have on repeat right now?
Ooh, Sade.
Okay. Didn't expect that one, I gotta say, but that's a good one. I'm gonna put that on my rotation also. Who is your favorite hero of fiction?
I don't have a favorite many things. So favorite hero, I don't really have one. I would say it's a mix between Bruce Lee, Black Panther, Maya Angelou, and I don't know.
Three is enough. Three's a lot. Combination of all those three would be pretty cool. Who are your heroes then in real life?
Mm, God,
What quality do you most like in a person?
awareness of value, self accountability.
And final one, is there anybody who you'd like to say thank you to who's helped you in your career?
Everyone, because whether we agree, disagree, whether you pulled me forward or not, every situation, every interaction, I'm here because of it.
Well, given the story that you've shared today, I think that's a pretty incredible thing to say. Thank you so much for being a guest for Humans of LinkedIn. I've absolutely loved spending the time with you, Jair.
Thanks for having me. This was awesome.
All right, chat to you soon.
See ya.